All right, before we begin, if you haven't already heard, on behalf of our Lorain City Schools family, it's with deep sadness that we share the loss of two Lorain children in a car accident late last night. And I'd like now to take a moment of silence to pray for all involved and their families. Thank you. If your child is struggling as a result of this tragedy, please know that we have grief counseling that started today. It'll be available tomorrow and as long as it's needed. To connect with that, please call us at 440-830-4082 or visit us on our website for the information to get you to the right place. Okay, for tonight, the purpose is to get you caught up on where we are and what we're doing and why we're here. And I just want to give you just a very brief summary of how we got to this point. We got here because we listened to you and we engaged you, and we're trying to make sure that we're providing the supports that you need. We started asking questions over the summer, and our families made it very clear they were not comfortable sending their children to school because they didn't think we can keep them safe during a pandemic. We asked our staff and they said, no, we're not ready. And as we looked deeper, we weren't. I mean, we were not in a position to keep anybody safe, our staff or our students. So we dove right into remote learning, and we got devices to people and internet to people, and the training to our staff that they needed. And the training came from other staff. So it was a beautiful thing to watch, people leaning on each other and taking care of one another, which is, I think, very timely as we go through a pandemic. But while we were getting good at the remote learning piece, obviously our goal was to create mitigation strategies that would allow children and staff to return to our buildings in a way that is safe. And what we've said all along is, there's nothing is safe because there's a pandemic. But on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the safest way to do things, everything we do will be at a 10. And I think the way Dave phrased it, Dave Colville in our last meeting was, the gold standard is X, and whatever the gold standard is where we'll be. Again, so we make sure that we're doing things that are doubled and tripled up in terms of making sure that there are layers and distances, and people are washing their hands and masking up. And so we are now to a place where we're safe, and we can provide a safe environment for people to come in and stay away from the pandemic piece. And the questions that I get a lot, one of the questions is, well, why is it when other school districts are backing off and actually taking more remote time that we're talking about going back or in person? And most of the districts that have been doing in person did take a break as they took a deep breath, and they're all most are planning on coming back after the holiday break, which is when we're planning on coming back. But for us, if it's not, I can't speak for other districts, but if when that time comes, it is not safe, and we've got a slew of medical professionals and public health officials and professionals and experts on this call with us, and we meet with them on a regular basis. And if it's determined not to be safe, we won't come to school. And I liken it to a snow day where people say, okay, Jeff, when do you call it a snow day? Well, we'll call a snow day when I don't think it's safe for kids to come to school. They say, okay, what's that look like? Well, it looks like a variety of different things. But we huddle up at 4 o'clock and 5 o'clock in the morning and listening to the experts about weather and talking to the city people about how we're doing on plowing streets and talking to our internal people about how we're doing at keeping our parking lots clear. So we're very inclusive. We listen to the people that have the information that we need. Then I make a decision. But I am in no better position now to delay the start of school because of the pandemic than I am to call a snow day 3 weeks in advance. So based on what we believe we know today, we can open up school on a scale of 1 to 10 at that 10. If when we get closer to that date, it becomes obvious that we cannot. One of the beautiful things about our plan is we need very little time a day to flip a switch, and the next day we're full remote. And if COVID disappears for whatever reason, the next day we flip a switch and everybody's back in. So the plan was put together with with some parameters that you'll see that allow some luxuries for children and families to change their mind about whether or not they want to be in person or remote. And again, the next day we can flip that switch and accommodate the family's request or that child's request. So, excuse me, what was going to happen today, I'm going to let Ross and Aaron take over here in a couple seconds and facilitate the meeting and walk us through our phase 2 plan. But before so, I want them to, if they could, introduce our guests. And again, we are so blessed to have, and I ended the last meeting with this, they choose consistently to spend time with us, and they don't get paid extra for it. They're not consultants getting extra. They go above and beyond to make sure we have what we need and that we can take care of you the way that we'd like to. And we have an exclusive audience with them every Wednesday morning, and it's all about us. We talk about whatever we want to talk about. And it's getting to the point now where they're also engaging more with one another. But the purpose of the meeting is to meet the needs of our staff and our children and our families to get what they need during these crazy times. And I just can't thank them enough for always making themselves available. And again, these are frontline people that are as busy as anybody right now, but they consistently make time for us. So I just want to say I would thank them for their expertise. They are great people, experts in their field, and we are just very, very blessed to have them as part of our family. So Ross, if you could maybe introduce our fans.
All right, so just to then pick up with introductions. So again, like Jeff said, we are so fortunate that we've got Shar Ray every Wednesday and tonight, and Dave Koval again Wednesdays and tonight, and then Dr. Prakash Ganesh from Case Western again during the day, Wednesdays, and then tonight to join us. Shar, do you mind just doing an introduction of yourself and for the group?
Sure. My name is Shar Ray. I work at Mercy Health, and I am a nurse and a mom, and I have been just so pleased and honored to partner with Lorain City Schools to make sure that they've got just the best program possible to keep everybody safe. Anything that you guys need, just know that we'll be here to help.
Yeah, thanks, Shar. And Shar has been just instrumental in as we've worked to develop our COVID testing process. She made some really important connections with us, with some folks at Oberlin, some folks at Ohio State, and as part of the Ministry of Mercy in a larger level. So she's been just extremely helpful every step of the way to get us going with the testing, and then also as we develop our plan. Dave, you want to go next?
Sure. I'm Dave Koval. I'm the Health Commissioner for Lorain County Public Health. We are the group that investigates a lot of the illness, and many of you have maybe gotten contacted from one of my nurses or contact tracers if you became positive, just to see how you are and check on you throughout the illness, and also identify close contacts so that we could quarantine folks to try to slow the virus down. That's been our role throughout this campaign. And the other piece has been to advise school districts on how to open safely and work closely with superintendents and whatever admin staff is really designing the plan for that school. And we've been working closely here with Lorain City Schools. So good to be here.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. And Dave and then Mitch, his epidemiologist, have just been excellent. Again, really to keep us very grounded in what's exactly happening in the moment, options for us to consider as we design our model, and then most recently to take a good look at our contact tracing process, just every step of the way holding our hand. So yeah, thanks, Dave. Prakash, you want to go next?
Sure. Thank you, guys. My name is Prakash Ganesh. I'm a physician here in Cuyahoga County, but I work at Case Western Reserve as an assistant professor in the Department of Family Medicine. I'm also a staff physician for neighborhood family practice and a clinical consultant with the Cuyahoga County Board of Health. I am a father of 2 little girls. One was born during the pandemic, and so we call her kind of a COVID baby. But it's been great meeting with this group. We've been just helpful in terms of evaluating the program, but the Lorain City, your school admin, has been the ones that have pushed the whole plan through.
And Prakash has just been excellent from, again, the kind of the research side of making sure that when we design our testing process, that we're going to be able to get results that mean things about our mitigation practices, that we're not just shooting in the dark on this. From our mitigation practices, he came out and walked through our high school the one day to take a look at what we had in place and gave us some suggestions to make sure that we're just keeping everybody as safe as possible. So to all of them, thank you so much. And Jeff, is there anything else you want to add in there?
Yeah, if I could just jump in there very quickly, and just about the process and how we all got together. And we reached out to Dave Colville and Mercy Health, and we said we need data, but we don't know what we need. We just know we want to make decisions based on what's in the best interest of what's going on within our schools, within the Lorain City School District, in the community part of the district. And we looked around and we did a lot of homework, did a lot of research, and we met a lot. And we came up with our current plan to do testing on a regular basis to assume what's going on. And as we kind of finalized exactly what we wanted to do, actually Ross stumbled across somebody at Case and got us in touch with Dr. Ganesh because he was looking to do exactly this, to assess the quality mitigation strategies in school districts. And as a result of this partnership, and I got to tell you, I've just been impressed of watching it grow. It started out being all about us. We meet every Wednesday morning at 9 o'clock, and we have an exclusive audience with these people and their teams. Again, experts from every angle, and we've been the center of attention throughout. But how it's morphed a little bit is in our Wednesday morning meetings, they're talking with each other about how things are going and how we can all work together to get better, as opposed to everybody just helping us. But I got to tell you, just incredibly impressed with who they are as people, who they are as professionals, and I'm excited about the quality of safety mitigation strategies we can provide as a result of our partnerships with these experts. So again, truly thank you, because I'm not sure if there are anybody's busier than folks in your world, but you always make time for us. And this is just yet one more example of how you drop everything and come to make sure that the folks in Lorain are okay. So just thank you very much.
All right, so let's get into the presentation then. All right, everybody see that okay? Sharon just fine? All right, so where we are in terms of our Open with Care plan. We are right here poised to start into phase 2. Phase 1 at the beginning of the year, we decided that, as Dr. Graham mentioned at the beginning, we needed to start in a remote opening for a number of reasons. But from a community standpoint, when we surveyed you back in the summer, you said, we're not ready to send our kids back. We don't believe that you can keep our kids safe. And if you do have cases of COVID, we're pulling our kids out right away. So that was very clear to us that we needed to start in a remote fashion, and we had some work to do. Well, we believe that we're ready. So now we're into phase 2, which is family choice. So again, you can choose to send your child back in person, or you can choose to keep your student remote. We're going to go through the very specifics of what that's going to look like here this evening. Again, please pose your questions in the chat, as either Aaron or Waleska will get to those items, and as they come up, we'll pause and address those questions as they come in.
And Ross, just for a moment, we have I think we have everything figured out where YouTube is running live, but because we have some parallel live programming going, we're asking that those questions be put over into the chat here. So we will take those as they come in. So thanks for your patience.
All right, so on the left side of the screen, we've got just a description of our remote learning. So again, we started that September 8th. We need to provide laptops, iPads to all students and our staff across the district. We provided internet and through either partnership with Spectrum Cable or through distribution of Wi-Fi hotspots. We knew we needed to expand our meal distribution, so we expanded that from 9 sites to 33 sites across the community with evening hours as well. And then we need to check in on you a couple times. So we checked in the summer, checked in again in October to see how things were going, what adjustments we need to make, and then also to help us start to plan for phase 2, which again is a parent choice for hybrid learning. So we are excited to be getting ready to start that. Some of the just simple things here: meal distribution is still going to happen. You still get to keep your technology and the Wi-Fi. You're going to need that all the way through the school year. So those are still in place. And we have a number of mitigation practices in place to help us make sure that we keep you safe as we get into our in-person learning that we'll go deeper with right now. So you know what remote learning looks like. You've been through that to this point in the year. I'm going to move on to what hybrid learning is going to start to look like. So students have been divided into 2 cohorts. Those notifications have started going out actually today, I think. So if you haven't found out yet which cohort A or B your child is in, you should be either today or tomorrow. The reason for that is we want to keep our numbers small. Go ahead. Somebody hopping in there?
Yeah, it was me. The translation for those is being laid over top of them, so they should anticipate their notification, as you mentioned, sometime after this session or sometime tomorrow morning. So again, patience is appreciated, but we wanted to make sure that the information was available in both languages. So thanks.
All right. Yeah, very good. Thanks, Erin. So we wanted to make sure that we could keep everyone 6 feet apart. When we talked with Dave and Shar and Prakash, and we wanted to make sure that we're being as safe as possible. For us, when we looked at our classroom sizes and the number of students that we could safely fit in a classroom, we need to keep everyone 6 feet apart, which meant that we need to break our students into 2 groups to be able to do that. So you'll either be in the A group or the B group. And again, you'll find that out, sounds like probably maybe tomorrow then. Wednesdays are going to be an asynchronous learning day for everybody. We will not have any students on site on Wednesdays. On the days that you're in person, you will be in person for those 2 days, learning in the classroom with the teacher, and those who are at home that day will be Zooming in and learning from that teacher at the same time. When it's your day to be remote learning, the other group of students will be in person. You'll be home, Zooming in from the teacher with your classmates again at that time. We're providing breakfast. So when students get here, they'll have breakfast. We're going to provide a snack, and then lunch will be provided on the way out the door with a snack for the afternoon as well. And then we're going to continue our meal distribution in the community, again, at those 33 stops, and then again with the evening hours. So let's talk just a little bit more about what the remote and in-person instruction is going to look like. And we've been calling this our live stream instruction model. So Barb, you want to talk through this a little bit?
Sure. So we know how important it is that students are able to communicate and contribute to each other's conversations and learn from each other. And so what we've done is we've made it so that whether students are at home or whether students are within the classroom, the teacher will be able to utilize the smartboard so that students will be able to see each other. Teachers are aware that it's going to look a little bit different, so that because of the fact that we've now taught remote completely and we've taught in person completely, but now we're joining those two together. So some different strategies are going to be used, but now the students will be able to see each other. They'll be able to communicate together, and teaching will move forward with the students in person, and that personal conversations, but the conversations will be allowed to occur between the home and the school. So it's going to be a pretty cool situation, very unique. This is uncharted territory.
Yeah, thanks, Barb. All right, so let's talk about the timeline that we have left here. So we right now notifications should be again going out tonight and tomorrow if you haven't found out already through your child's teacher about which group that you're in, the A group or the B group, to return to school. We've actually been working on staff assignments all throughout our process, and so our staff assignments are actually in place. So then the week of winter break or after winter break, the week of January 4th, all of our staff return to the buildings, and we're going to transition to our new schedule. Now, students are still going to be learning remotely that week. They're not coming into the school yet, but the week of January 4th, then we're going to switch to our new schedule, which is going to be 4 days of synchronous learning again, and then Wednesdays will be an asynchronous day. We'll talk about that schedule coming up here more in a minute. Then the following week, the week of January 11th, that's the week then that students will come back. So we'll have all of our staff back that first week after winter break. Second week back, our students will be back and in the building and ready to go with the 2 days in person, 3 days remote for that week.
Hey, Ross. Also, for our high school students, when they return, can you explain a little bit about that schedule?
Yeah, and you know what, actually...
but just to reiterate, yeah.
Yeah, Aretha, do you mind talking just a bit about how the testing works for the high school? Because
Yes, absolutely. So typically when students have their end of course exams or testing for their state testing within a regular year, they go on an adjusted schedule. And so we're basically doing that right now. So the first 2 weeks of the school, the state extended the time so that we can test up until January 15th. So we'll be assessing hopefully a couple hundred kids during that time with social distancing and mask and all the things that we need to make sure that kids stay safe. We'll be doing our testing for the first 2 weeks, and then the high school students will begin their regular hybrid schedule. I think it's January 19th. I'm sorry, I don't. Yeah. Is it?
Yep, you're right.
January 19th.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks, Aretha.
You're welcome.
And we have to give those tests in person. There's no wiggle room on that. That's a legislated item. And so that's just our reality. So in phase 2, we had 4 guiding principles that were just really important to us to make sure that we were adhering to these as much as possible with designing our plan. So we wanted to make sure, again, as much as possible, that we could keep our students with their current teachers. We did not want to have to start over with students getting new teachers in the middle of the year. We know that we've got important relationships that have been formed throughout this point. We did not want to upset those. The next principle here was that we wanted to be able to provide as much flexibility as possible here for our students and for our staff, knowing that we're going to have students that and staff that will end up needing to probably quarantine at some point, and we didn't want to have to interrupt learning for that to occur. So if a student starts out in hybrid and they need to learn from home for a week or 2 weeks, we can do that. Likewise, we have some staff that need to teach from home for a period of time. We can do that. So flexibility was a real important principle for us. As much as possible, we wanted to maintain the current secondary schedules. And then again, as much as possible, we wanted to make sure that our families could send their children in person on the same day. And so when you get your notification of the A group or the B group, you should see, again, if you haven't already gotten it, you should see that everybody living in your household should be going to school on the same days. So we're trying to keep, again, as much as possible, our families connected together. So here's a look at our schedule. And Bill, do you mind joining the conversation here and just kind of walking through what that looks like, what that means for you when if you're in an A group, or if you're in the B group, or if you selected full remote?
Sure. So a common example would be a 5th grade classroom that has 24 students, and half the class will be returning for face-to-face instruction. So that would give us 12 students that would be split between a group A and a group B. So on this given day for group A, 6 students would be in the classroom and 18 students would be streaming online. And then the opposite would happen for group B. 6 would come on Thursday, Friday, and the remaining 18 students in that classroom would be live streaming in.
Mm-hmm. And then if you're in that full remote group, you're learning with your classmates. You're just doing it from home each day of the week. Yeah, thanks, Bill.
Can we share, going back to the previous slide, we often get questions about what asynchronous time really looks like. So especially with itinerant schedules, et cetera.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Bill, Aretha, Barb, do you guys mind talking just a little bit from the work groups that you guys have had and the teams that have been working to design what that instruction looks like? Just a good description of that asynchronous instruction.
Sure. We met with our itinerant teachers today. So we had representatives from art, music, phys ed, our computers, our media center, and those folks will work hard to prepare lessons that are delivered and posted online. And our kids access those through Google Classroom. And with our return to school for face-to-face, they shared that they like to have some more time with kids live while they're in the classroom, and be able to remote in to explain what the lesson is. So asynchronous instruction for itinerant classes is posted through Google Classroom, and kids access it from home.
All right, very good. All right, thanks, Bill. So we've got a calendar. So if you're in the A group, you can look to see all the red dates would be the dates that you're in person. All the gray dates would be days that you're remote. And then the blue dates that are asynchronous, those are days that you're home, still learning, just again from home. And then the yellow dates on there are days with no school at all. And then conversely, if you're in the B group, here's your calendar.
And Ross, for our folks who may have logged in a little later, the notifications for Group A or Group B are going out this evening and tomorrow. They're going out a little later than we anticipated because we wanted to make sure that it was available in English and in Spanish. So thank you for your patience.
Mm-hmm. At any point, if you've got questions, please contact your child's school. Questions about transportation, athletics, special education services. If you need to make an appointment at our health clinic, and we'll talk about that a bit later again. All of the numbers that hopefully you need are here on this page for you. So let's talk just a little bit of health and safety. And so we'll set up some of the protocols we have, and then we'll invite Shar and Dave and Prakash just to talk about some of the important items for us to be able to open up and have folks back in person. Just at a simple level, we have hand sanitizer and sinks all throughout our schools now. We have our training protocols aligned with and cleaning protocols aligned with CDC expectations. And is Marianne? I don't know if I saw Marianne or not. Talk through some more of this.
And Ross, while we're waiting for Mary, whoops, did I send the new link to her? Can you please go back to the link that explains how remote instruction will be working in terms of how will students at home interact with students who are in the classroom? And I will send that to Mary right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so if we just take a step back, actually, Barb, you want to pick that up and kind of go through that description again?
Sure. So the setup is going to be that the students in the classroom are going to be viewing the smart board, and on the smart board, the students in the classroom are going to be able to see the students who are on the Zoom link. And so similar to how we can see people in this particular meeting, where the students in the classroom are going to be able to see that. There's also going to be a document camera set up. And so the document camera is going to be facing out to the classroom, and they'll be able to see each other. So when kids on Zoom raise their hand, the kids within the classroom will be able to see that. And when kids within the classroom raise their hands, the kids on Zoom will be able to see that.
Yeah, thanks, Barb. So we'll get back to just some of the kind of basic safe and cleaning things that we're doing for our schools, and then Shar, Dave, and Prakash, if you guys could talk just a little bit about some of the mitigation practices that are important to have in place. So again, we've got hand hygiene through our sanitization, sanitizers, through any place that doesn't have a sink has a hand sanitizer. They're in the hallways. Our cleaners will be cleaning every single day. We've bought some new equipment that can actually do massive sterilization in a few minutes across each room. So from a cleanliness standpoint, we feel really good about the investments we've made. We've upgraded some of our HVAC as well. So we feel really good about how clean we're going to be able to keep our schools, and disinfectant we'll be able to keep our schools. Prakash, Dave, Shar, do you guys mind talking just a little bit about just some of the important mitigation practices around cleanliness, around distancing, around just a mitigation as a whole that we've talked through that you guys have helped to guide us to help set up?
Well, I guess I'll go first. So I want to stress a few things. Again, 6 feet apart, wearing your mask, and washing your hands. Those are truly the best ways to stop this virus from moving. And so when the surfaces are cleaned and frequently touch surfaces are cleaned, that's going to be great, but there's no way that you're going to be able to clean them so often that someone might not touch them. So again, there's two barriers: the cleaning of that surface and your hands. And so please stress with the children of all ages the importance of hand washing. It really is an important piece of the puzzle. And so that's really important. And then again, it's important to remember also when children or even the teachers are in a casual setting, when they start to relax and maybe they're at lunch or maybe they see each other in the hallway or something like that, that's when we see it spread. So again, if we can just stay 6 feet apart, wear your mask, wash your hands, you can really do a lot to slow down the spread.
Hey, thanks, Dave.
Ross, a quick question from the chat. Families are wondering who is cleaning the classrooms in between classes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so is Mary on, or if not, I can take that one. Maybe not yet. So, got it.
No, she's not available right now. She's
okay
on a mission.
Got it. All right, no problem. Yeah, so during the day, the custodians are armed to go around and handle anything that comes up. We also have, as part of our procedures, staff and then also students will be responsible for cleaning up after themselves. So we've got all kinds of wipes. We're going to practice these procedures with our students when they come back. We just put out actually some videos for our staff last night showing the cleanliness and steps for that. We also have a mister that the custodians will use, and they'll come around and they will it puts a very fine mist over top of all the surfaces, at 360-degree mist. So not just the top easy surfaces, but to disinfect that way. And then the cleaners will come in. I think they're coming in at 10:30 and then until 7 o'clock. So they'll start cleaning while we still have folks in the buildings, and then through once everybody's out of the building to make sure everything has been disinfected really top to bottom. Anything else there, Erin, we need to address before moving on?
There are some questions about masks and also how we will be maintaining 6-foot social distancing on buses. So I figured we could address those when we get to those slides.
Okay, all right, very good. All right, so let's talk just a little bit then about what happens if you are test COVID positive. So at a very simple level, if you test COVID positive, please stay home. Very, very simply, just stay home. If you have symptoms that you suspect that may be related to COVID at all, please stay home. And we will again have people that test positive. When you test positive, please either call the school and let us know, or we'll have a link on our main webpage that you can complete and let us know that your child is tested positive for COVID. That will trigger then at that point, in partnership with Dave and the health department, our contact tracing process. So we'll be in touch with you then to learn about who may be close contacts, and we'll do that process in the school. If you are positive, then you'll be put in isolation, which means you're home for 10 days. We still, if you're feeling well and you don't have symptoms, we would expect then that your child would still participate in learning, just remotely. If you are determined to be a close contact to someone at some point that's positive and needs to quarantine, the quarantine is for 14 days. Again, we would ask that you please continue to participate in learning, just you're remotely for those 14 days. If you are sick and you're not feeling well, you're sick. No different than a non-pandemic time, and you need to stay home. You need to feel better, and then when you're feeling better, Zoom back in and participate in the learning again. Once you're symptom-free for after that, either 10 days or 14 days is up, for 24 hours without any type of fever-reducing medication, and it's your day to come back to school, come back to school. We want you right back in as soon as you can. Dave, hop in here. Anything here we need to just kind of touch up on or address or follow up on?
No, I think that explains it pretty well. And I think it's important to remember that whether you're asymptomatic when you start, it's really important to monitor those symptoms the whole time, the whole 10 days, and make sure that you don't develop symptoms, and then you can come back.
Right. Thanks, Dave. So just a bit more about contact tracing then. We have a district contact tracing team. And again, Dave's been extremely helpful in taking a look at our process. And Prakash again last week also took a look at what we have to make sure that what we've got should do the trick for us. To be quick, should be accurate, should also be thorough but non-invasive. So at the district level, we have a district contact tracing team. Each school has actually 3 people that will, if they haven't already, will be trained tomorrow as the contact tracers. So the principal, assistant principal, and then the secretary are all part of that team. So we have a backup to the backup to the backup to make sure that we're ready to contact trace at the school level. Contact tracing will happen. They'll talk with staff. They'll talk with probably the family member. They'll talk with, if we need to, transportation. Talk with athletics if we need to determine who close contacts are. And then anyone that's determined to be a close contact will be notified by the school through phone, through text, and also through letter to make sure that you're well aware. And any questions that you have, please ask. We'll be happy to talk through any and all questions with you. And again, we're partnering very closely with Dave and his team on this at the health department. So, we will make sure that we are crystal clear about any questions that may come up with contact tracing. Along the way, our partnership with Mercy, Katie Malier, who's the nurse practitioner for Mercy, is housed in Washington Elementary School. So if at any point you aren't feeling well, you need an appointment, you need to come in and get a COVID test. Katie is stationed again at Washington Elementary School. The contact information is there. We encourage you, please come visit, and she'll take a look and help however she can.
Ross, we're getting just about to the 6 o'clock hour. And Amerilee is ready to hop on and take over for interpreting. How does she get to the part where she can hear the speakers right now?
Okay, I need to stop sharing back out of this real quick. And we will get her set up.
This has been our least smooth town hall, in terms of like we ain't so smooth, You are, Ross. You are very smooth.
All right, so Amerilee, you should be added, and you should be good to go now. I see you, and you should be good. All right, we're good. So for here, just Shar, Prakash, do you guys mind talking about just the importance of recognizing symptoms that are COVID related versus maybe just other symptoms, maybe allergies or something else, and doing self-monitoring to just check yourself to know if it's okay to go to school or to go to work if you have any of these symptoms?
Yeah, I guess I can help out with that. Right now we've been seeing a lot of people presenting with hey, I just thought I had my regular allergies, and that's why and that's what they assumed were their current symptoms, but they ended up testing positive for COVID. So it's really important to look out for new symptoms that are kind of out of your norm. But even if you kind of have allergy symptoms, and this is not quite the season for your allergies, then you should kind of take note of that. Unfortunately, it's kind of hard right now with the weather and those seasons changing. It's sometimes very difficult. So that's why those other mitigation practices are so important for you to keep up. So if you do develop new cough, fever, chills, sore throat, you really need to see your primary care doctor, or and also not go to school. I think that's what I would say. And if you get tested, I also, if you are tested for COVID and you're waiting for the result from your primary care doctor, you should also not go into school while you're waiting for those results. I think that the testing piece from your school, though, is a little different. But if you are being investigated from your primary care doctor, it's a little different.
Mhm. Yeah, thanks, Prakash. All right, and we've got some definitions here. Just what a close contact is, not tested if you're pending test results, positive test results, negative, and alternative diagnosis. But just so we're clear about what a close contact is, someone that's in isolation and quarantine. And we've gotten this question a lot: what's the difference between isolation and quarantine? And we'll say it, and then please somebody hop in and clarify or go a little bit deeper with this. But somebody in isolation has tested positive, and they would be in isolation for 10 days from either the test date or the onset of symptoms. And then someone who's quarantined who has been determined to be a close contact with someone who did test positive, and the quarantine period is for 14 days. And Dave, Shar, Prakash, again, just if you guys don't mind, just to emphasize the importance of the 10 and 14 days. And we had a question another day came up about, well, the CDC said maybe we can come back early. Can you guys just address that?
Sure. So first, yeah, the isolation is all about how long you shed the virus once you become sick. And so again, it takes 10 days and at least 24 hours of you no longer feeling sick that you no longer will be able to give it to anybody else. And so that's why the isolation is that number. Now, it could last longer if your sickness lasts longer, but again, it's a minimum of 10 days and 24 hours not ill. The quarantine is all about what's called the incubation period of the virus. So you get exposed, it can take up to 14 days for you to actually catch the virus and show symptoms. And so there has been some discussion about should you lower that to 10, and that's mostly because most people, when you get exposed, you actually begin to get sick between 5 and 10 days, most people. And so if you are an essential worker or somebody who's got to get back to work because you're trying to feed the family, I mean, look, we've all going through a lot of this. Can you shorten it those last few days and just go to work with a mask and really closely monitor your symptoms and make sure you don't get it? And so the CDC made that adjustment for folks. That's not really recommended in most cases, and certainly for students, that's probably not a good idea. So 14 days is the way to stay. But again, if you're a nurse and you're trying to help people, and we really need to get you back to work, that's why that quarantine was shortened. And again, most likely, most people won't get it. Okay, so they'll go through 14 days of quarantine and won't get the virus because, again, it depends on if you stay away from that person who is sick and you only had one exposure to them, then you may not get it. It's really more people that you live with that you have a better chance of getting it from because, again, you just have close contact when you live with them. And so, again, that's the importance between isolation and quarantine.
Yeah, thanks, Dave.
Hey, Ross, it is now 6 o'clock, so we might be having some new families joining us, expecting that we're restarting the presentation. Mm-hmm. So to all of our families who are just logging on right now, we got a little bit of a late start, and then we had an interrupted Zoom. So we are about halfway through our first presentation right now, if you want to hang on. And Jeff, did you want to say a couple words to welcome folks at this point?
Do you want to just finish this one up and invite people in at 6:30, or how do you? I want to be respectful to the families that have already begun. And we're trying again. I apologize for the confusion, but yeah, we got bombed and had to take a break and restart some things. So
maybe let's continue and
yeah,
then
let's continue this, and then 6:30 we'll kick off the one for the secondary, if that's okay. Mm-hmm. Thanks.
So when we look at our mitigation practices and we go a bit deeper with it now, face covering is mandatory. We are providing masks. Everyone needs to wear a mask unless you've got a medical documentation that says no. But masks are mandatory. And Prakash, do you mind talking just a little bit? We were talking the one day in one of our meetings, and you talked about thinking of the virus in terms of smoke, and where masks are just so important. And we've got, actually, it's come up quite a few times in the last couple of days about face shields versus masks. Do you mind talking just in describing again that same metaphor you used to describe the virus and smoke?
Yeah, sure. One of the main ways that this virus is transmitted is through aerosolizing of respiratory particles, and then somebody else inhaling it. And so we think it's one of the best measures to put into place is wearing face masks, and appropriately wearing face masks to cover your nose and your mouth. And one of the ways I try to explain it to people is, if you think of somebody smoking, if you're smoking and you blow air out, or if you're outside in the cold and you're blowing air out, you can see your breath or the smoke coming out. And when you do that and you're wearing a face shield, you can see all the smoke coming out around the sides or going down below. And that's kind of the way that your respiratory particles are traveling. But if you're wearing a mask, it minimizes that significantly. Not 100%, but it does reduce that spread significantly. And that's what we are wanting to make sure that you guys are able to practice within the school setting as well, and in public.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks, Prakash. A couple other things. Seating charts are going to be mandatory. So staff will keep seating chart in classrooms for those that eat breakfast in the cafeteria, on the buses. Any place students are going to be in a spot, we're going to have a seating chart so we know where our students are at all times. We talked earlier about the 6 feet of distance when we were setting up our classrooms and determining how many students could come in person. Dave, we had a really robust discussion the other night. Mitch did a great job talking through that we could go down to 3 feet, but 6 feet is ideal. Do you mind just, again, explaining the importance of the distancing there? And we could go 3 feet, but 6 feet is really better.
Yeah, so I mean, I've said it before that there's no such thing as zero risk, but you want to make as many barriers as you can. And there's a big difference between 6 and 3 feet in terms of how that droplet spread that Prakash just mentioned, how that happens, right? And so if you're further away, if you get that full 6 feet, you have a much better chance that would actually fall to the floor. And so that really does help quite a bit. And again, masks actually hold that in too, and so that even helps with the reduction and another barrier that you can have on. So it is really important. Some districts have not been able to do it, and so they've gone to 4 feet or something like that, and they wear a mask, and they hope that it won't spread because you still have some distance between. But 6 feet is really the gold standard on what you want when it comes to separating people, in desks or in general.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. Hand hygiene is really important. Dave talked about that earlier. So again, we've got hand sanitizing stations all throughout our schools. We're asking for students, please, we encourage you to bring a water bottle. We've got water bottle filling stations. Our drinking fountains are going to be turned off. So we're not going to have shared drinking spaces, but we have bottle fillers that have been installed in the schools, and we encourage you to bring a water bottle. Let's talk just a little bit about the testing then.
Hey, Rob,
So
we go back to the water bottle just real quick. Bill Oley, do you want to talk a little bit about the support being provided in the water bottle land, if you were still on the call?
Over in water bottle land, we are working to purchase some return to school supplies to lessen or eliminate the sharing of supplies. And along with that, we'll be providing water bottles. And Aaron and I are collaborating on the messaging for our water bottles that supports our PBIS program.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. So let's talk just a little bit about our testing process. And Shar, I want to bring you in a minute here because Shar's helped us to set up our initial testing with our athletes, and then again to set up our testing going forward here with staff and students. So we are going to randomly test our staff and our students weekly. This is free of charge. This is completely opt-in. We're not mandating that anyone has to participate in COVID testing, but this is going to be really important for us to have a gauge of how effective our mitigation is, so we can make adjustments right away if we need to, if we see that we have close contacts show up. And then also it's going to be really important for us to find out who is positive and maybe asymptomatic, so we can stop that spread right away. So Shar, do you mind talking just a little bit about some of the setup with the athletes and how that's kind of worked so far to this point? And then Prakash, I'd like to just bring you in just from a mitigation practices and how this can help us to address like kind of that area of mitigation.
Sure. So Katie and the nurses in the clinic have worked really hard to put together a simple testing process, and we were able to begin to do that with the student athletes. And the testing is not what you've seen historically in the videos, where it looks like this long, horrible thing going in your head. It's a swab at the front of the nose area. It takes just a few seconds to get it done, and then folks can go on their way. As Ross said, you'll have to sign a consent for that, and you'll get your results, and the school will, and the health department will let you know if you're positive. But it's really just precautionary, and it's something that I think has been going very well for folks. So the goal would be to make it as quick and easy for folks that are going through it. And then once the results get back, you'll know exactly, if you've got it or not for that testing moment. And they believe it really is going to provide an extra layer of safety, because the one thing that everybody wants to focus on is, if there is somebody who gets sick, keeping it from spreading. And this is a definite tool in the toolbox to keep that from happening.
Yeah, thanks, Shar. And Prakash, can you talk about it again, just kind of a layer of mitigation and how this can help to inform both the public health, but the individual health as well?
Sure. I liked how you presented it earlier. There was several little circles, blue circles of each of the mitigation strategies, and one of them was testing. And I like to think of testing as its own pillar of mitigation, just because it allows us to act without blinders. So we know kind of who's coming in and out to show that our mitigation strategies are working like they should be, and then maybe if they shouldn't be working that way, we can adjust and adapt our practices to best to make sure people are safe. So I like to think of it as a way of being able to see what is happening with our mitigation strategies in action.
Yeah, thanks, Prakash. So again, it's voluntary, but we encourage you to participate. It's free. We will notify family members a week before your student is picked to test. It will be random. So there's a possibility that your student could be picked to test multiple times or no times. Again, it'd be a random selection. On our staff side, again, it'll be random. Again, just like the students, you can be tested multiple times or none. You have the same chance of being tested every single week. Again, completely voluntary though. We do have to have wellness rooms. So each building has determined what their wellness area is. And so anybody that's exhibiting symptoms would wait there until they're picked up by a family member. And then again, we talked about this before, if you have any symptoms, please stay home that day and just learn remotely. So let's talk just a little bit more on our expectations then, and how we're linking to kindness, and then a very kind of short, succinct, just repetitive set of signs that you're going to see throughout our schools here when you come back. But we are really emphasizing kindness as we come back. We're emphasizing being kind to yourself, kind to others, and being kind to your environment, and that's really helps to frame all of our procedures that your students will experience when we come back. So the first thing is and you will hear this a lot. Dave referenced it earlier. You will hear a lot of wash up. So wash your hands, back up, stay 6 feet apart, and mask up. And over and over and over again. And as Dave said earlier, if we do those three things, we're very confident that we're going to be able to stay safe. So then when our students come back and actually remotely the week of January 4th and then in person, they will be directly taught and have a chance to practice and be reinforced for our procedures. But we will teach exactly what the procedures look like, sound like, feel like. They will practice the procedures connected to arrival, connected to dismissal, eating, class transitions, during instruction. We have procedures and we'll have a video out for family members to know what that looks like when you need to come maybe pick up your child early for some reason, or if they forget something, you need to drop something off. In short, we're not letting visitors pass the office. So, and in each office, there is only allowed 1 to 3 people, depending on how big the office is. So if there are multiple people at a time, that we'll have to wait outside. But we've got procedures for transportation, restrooms, all those areas. And again, when we come back after the break, we'll directly teach those procedures. Children have a chance to practice them, be reinforced, and then constantly reminded, all through a lens of kindness, though.
And Ross, some of the questions that we most often get through Facebook and through email are regarding these procedures. Exactly what will arrival look like and dismissal look like, et cetera. And I think it's really helpful to be able to emphasize here that this is when all of those procedures are going to be taught to our children.
Mm-hmm.
And we're working with our schools to also create information for families so that that can be reinforced at home, and so that families can see exactly what the expectations are for our kiddos and how they are living up to them.
Mm-hmm. And underneath all of it are just 4 main things: wash up, back up, and mask up. And they apply in every single procedural setting. And then we are going to be kind to ourselves, we're going to be kind to our others, and we're going to be kind to environment. So kindness as a whole, and then we've got, again, the wash up, the back up, and the mask up. Just a few more kind of expectations out there. Any events that, for the most part, that have been held in person will be held remotely. We've talked through actually a number of expectations and procedures, but we are going to ask students when they get to school, they go right to their room. They're not going to be hanging out in hallways and congregate areas, but they're going to go right to their rooms. Students will have their own set of supplies, so we're going to minimize the sharing of materials. We're not doing field trips. Visitors and volunteers, until further notice, anybody that has maybe been an external partner, we are happy and we would love to continue that partnership, just remotely. We're not going to have folks into our schools right now. Extracurricular activities, each extracurricular activity is being evaluated individually based on what the requirements are and how that matches with our expectations. So some extracurricular activities will likely proceed, others may not, depending on what the extracurricular activity involves. We've talked about meals already, but students are obviously providing breakfast and lunch. We're also providing snack. Breakfast will be either in the classroom, or in some of our schools, it'll be a combination of classroom and cafeteria and gym. And lunch will be on the way out. We're not going to serve lunch during the day. So students will get their lunch on the way out the door. And then they'll also actually have a supper snack provided as well. No sharing of food, no trading meals. Students will be seated, again, at least 6 feet apart. So the temptation to just reach across and swap sandwiches or something won't exist. And then again, we're going to continue to provide meals into the community. Transportation. So again, we're still providing busing. So we're working on all the routes right now based on those A-B cohorts. So you should be finding out, maybe not next week, but the following week, what your transportation times are. And then students from the same family will be allowed to sit together, but otherwise students won't be sharing a seat on the bus. Again, we'll have a seating chart on the bus, and students need to stay in their assigned seat with their masks on. Jane, are you on? I want to talk just a little bit about the students with disabilities and transitioning services for those students.
And one of the questions that we get most often from families is regarding what that schedule is going to look like. So if Jean is not on right now, perhaps we can go through some of those items.
Yeah, so Bill, Aretha, do you guys mind talking about start end times? If it's an early school, elementary, late school, elementary, and then when breakfast starts, instruction starts, and for middle school and high school too?
Sure.
Sure.
I'll start with elementary.
Go ahead.
We have early, we call them early buildings, late buildings. So there are buildings that are early, start at 8 o'clock, and breakfast is served from 8 o'clock till 8:15. Instruction goes from 8:15 until 12:30, and then a grab and go lunch, the dismissal, and bus exit. And then our late buildings begin at 9 o'clock. Breakfast is served from 9 o'clock until 9:15. Instruction goes from 9:15 until 1:30, and same lunch and dismissal, bus time.
Yeah, and the middle schools, so breakfast will start at 8:15 with classes from 8:30 to 12:50, and lunch out the door. And we've kind of discussed some of our special needs students that, maybe dismissing them about 5 minutes early and allowing them to eat lunch in the cafeteria before they get on the bus. Just for our kids that may struggle with carrying it from, getting their food from school to home. And then the high school, they're going to open the doors for breakfast at 7:30, and they'll start instruction at 8 o'clock. And they'll be dismissed at 1:15, 1:16, with the lunch out the door.
Yeah, thanks, Aretha. Thanks, Bill. So just for our students with disabilities and English learners, they're following the same schedule for return to school as everybody else. Our students with the most significant and intense needs, this week, our intervention specialists have been reaching out and inviting those students, their families, to have the student participate in person all 4 days if they choose. You don't have to choose that, but that's an option. And again, for our students with the most significant instructional needs, otherwise following the same schedule as everybody else. Everybody will be back, just like from the staff side at the same time. All of our paraprofessionals and assistants will return same time as everybody else. And then the adult staff that need additional protective equipment have that. So we do have some shields, some glass, some if we needed extra gloves, goggles, those types of things. So our staff has the extra PPE that they need. So communication, Erin, you want to pick up from here with just how we're continue to communicate?
Yep. And all families at this point should have received information from the district that includes a copy of this presentation, as well as links to frequently asked questions that we received. And we will continue to compile those questions and answers on our website. And that can be reached either on the main page of the website at loraineschools.org. Up in the very top portion is where you'll find all the links to phase 2. You can also continue to submit your questions directly to myself or through Facebook and on YouTube tonight. Eric Bonzar is he's gathering those questions for us so that we can continue to answer them for you. Additional resources that are available there are just tons of COVID safety tips that we, quite frankly, took straight off of the pages from the Lorain County Public Health and from Mercy Health of Lorain. They've just done a fantastic job of compiling helpful information for your family, how to get appointments, videos that demonstrate how to help your children wear masks, just really great. Also, our helplines, please use them as often as you need. Our helpline, 830-4357, you can use for technology issues or to get supports for your family. So if your family is struggling during this time, if you have food insecurity, if you have social emotional needs for your child, please give us a call, and we have people waiting to help. For Spanish speaking families, you can either use that number, or you'll reach Waleska Soto at 440-830-4088. And the final link here is the COVID testing locations. We do have at Washington Elementary, Mercy has a great clinic, as has been noted before, that they offer walk-in appointments, same-day appointments, even virtual appointments. But there are other COVID testing locations that you can reach at that link. And again, it was provided through Lorain County Public Health. So we will continue to share information with you as they develop, and we just can't wait to see you and your children back in our classrooms again. And on this last page, these are all the ways that we provide information to our families, to our staff, and to our community. When this presentation is shared online, these are clickable links that will take you to either the information that is shared there or how to sign up for e-newsletters, for notifications via text, and of course, these virtual town hall meetings. Thanks.
All right, Jeff, anything else you'd like to conclude with?
Yeah, I guess first I would like to again apologize to everybody for the fact that there was a disruption, but more so, I sincerely apologize for the quality of the disruption. And please know that we can keep your children safe from that. We had a glitch between our network and YouTube, so we shared the address to try to get around it to make sure we were being more inclusive. And in doing so, obviously got into the wrong hands. So I sincerely apologize for that. I'd also like to thank our guest panelists, and again, Shar and Prakash and Dave, and keep in mind, they don't get paid extra to be our friend. We have exclusive meetings with them every Wednesday. We talk on a regular basis. Every time we have a question, they make themselves available. They're choosing tonight to spend, instead of with their own families, they're choosing tonight to spend with our families. Again, to make sure that we're as safe as we can be and you have all the information you need. And again, you have access to them to ask them questions. So, but to Aaron's point earlier on the hotlines, we don't know what you need until you tell us. So please reach out, and even if it's not school stuff, we know people and we have connections, and we can get you the help that you need and the supports and resources that you need. So please let us know what we can do to help with that. But again, thanks for your patience and your endurance, and we'll keep doing these and making sure that you have the information that you need as we go through some pretty unique times. So thank you very much. Have a great night. And if I don't see you beforehand, enjoy your holidays. And
we have been rewarded by being able to see Prakash's kid. So look at that sweet child.
Well, in reality, that's what it's all about, right?
So for our families who came on at 6 o'clock and got the presentation at halfway through, do you want to go over some of those first couple of slides and get folks caught up that way?
Yeah, we told people to come back at 6:30. So you just want to start over at 6:30, which is about another 2 minutes, or how do you want to proceed? Or is now okay? Your professional opinions?
I think probably now is okay.
How's okay? All right. All right, before we begin, if you haven't already heard, on behalf of our Lorain City Schools family, it's with deep sadness that we share the loss of 2 Lorain children in a car accident late last night. And I'd like now to take a moment of silence to pray for all involved and their families. Thank you. If your child is struggling as a result of this tragedy, please know that we have grief counseling that started today. It'll be available tomorrow and as long as it's needed. To connect with that, please call us at 440-830-4088. 4082, or visit us on our website for the information to get you to the right place. Okay, for tonight, the purpose is to get you caught up on where we are and what we're doing and why we're here. And I just want to give you just a very brief summary of how we got to this point. We got here because we listened to you, and we engaged you, and we're trying to make sure that we're providing the supports that you need. We started asking questions over the summer, and our families made it very clear they were not comfortable sending their children to school because they didn't think we can keep them safe during a pandemic. We asked our staff, and they said, no, we're not ready. And as we looked deeper, we weren't. I mean, we were not in a position to keep anybody safe, our staff or our students. So we dove right into remote learning, and we got devices to people and internet to people, and the training to our staff that they needed. And the training came from other staff. So it was a beautiful thing to watch, people leaning on each other and taking care of one another, which is, I think, very timely as we go through a pandemic. But while we were getting good at the remote learning piece, obviously our goal was to create mitigation strategies that would allow children and staff to return to our buildings in a way that is safe. And what we've said all along is, there's nothing is safe because there's a pandemic. But on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the safest way to do things, everything we do will be at a 10. And what we have, I think the way Dave phrased it, Dave Colville in our last meeting was, the gold standard is X, and whatever the gold standard is where we'll be. Again, so we make sure that we're doing things that are doubled and tripled up in terms of making sure that there are layers and distances, and people are washing their hands and masking up. And so we are now to a place where we're safe, and we can provide a safe environment for people to come in and stay away from the pandemic piece. And the questions that I get a lot, one of the questions is, well, why is it when other school districts are backing off and actually taking more remote time that we're talking about going back or in person? And most of the districts that have been doing in person did take a break as they took a deep breath, and they're all most are planning on coming back after the holiday break, which is when we're planning on coming back. But for us, if it's not, I can't speak for other districts, but if when that time comes, it is not safe, and we've got a slew of medical professionals and public health officials and professionals and experts on this call with us, and we meet with them on a regular basis. And if it's determined not to be safe, we won't come to school. And I liken it to a snow day where people say, okay, Jeff, when do you call it a snow day? Well, we'll call a snow day when I don't think it's safe for kids to come to school. They say, okay, what's that look like? Well, it looks like a variety of different things. But we huddle up at 4 o'clock and 5 o'clock in the morning and listening to the experts about weather, and talking to the city people about how we're doing on plowing streets, and talking to our internal people about how we're doing at keeping our parking lots clear. So we're very inclusive. We listen to the people that have the information that we need, then I make a decision. But I am in no better position now to delay the start of school because of the pandemic than I am to call the snow day 3 weeks in advance. So based on what we believe we know today, we can open up school on a scale of 1 to 10 at that 10. If when we get closer to that date, it becomes obvious that we cannot, one of the beautiful things about our plan is we need very little time a day to flip a switch, and the next day we're full remote. And if COVID disappears for whatever reason, the next day we flip a switch and everybody's back in. So the plan was put together with with some parameters that you'll see that allow some luxuries for children and families to change their mind about whether or not they want to be in person or remote. And again, the next day we can flip that switch and accommodate the family's request or that child's request. So, excuse me, what was going to happen today, I'm going to let Ross and Aaron take over here in a couple seconds and facilitate the meeting and walk us through our phase 2 plan. But before so, I want them to, if they could, introduce our guests. And again, we are so blessed to have, and I ended the last meeting with this, they choose consistently to spend time with us, and they don't get paid extra for it. They're not consultants getting extra. They go above and beyond to make sure we have what we need and that we can take care of you the way that we'd like to. And we have an exclusive audience with them every Wednesday morning, and it's all about us. We talk about whatever we want to talk about. And it's getting to the point now where they're also engaging more with one another. But the purpose of the meeting is to meet the needs of our staff and our children and our families to get what they need during these crazy times. And I just can't thank them enough for always making themselves available. And again, these are frontline people that are as busy as anybody right now, but they consistently make time for us. So I just want to say I would thank them for their expertise. They are great people, experts in their field, and we're just very, very blessed to have them as part of our family. So Ross, if you could maybe introduce our fans.
All right, so just to then pick up with introductions. So again, like Jeff said, we are so fortunate that we've got Shar Ray every Wednesday and tonight, and Dave Koval again Wednesdays and tonight, and then Dr. Prakash Ganesh from Case Western again during the day, Wednesdays, and then tonight to join us. Shar, do you mind just doing an introduction of yourself and for the group?
Sure. My name is Shar Ray. I work at Mercy Health, and I am a nurse and a mom, and I have been just so pleased and honored to partner with Lorain City Schools to make sure that they've got just the best program possible to keep everybody safe. Anything that you guys need, just know that we'll be here to help.
Yeah, thanks, Shar. And Shar was extremely helpful as we were initially trying to figure out how to make this all work. She put us in touch with folks from Oberlin College who helped. We learned a lot from them, and some folks from the Ohio State Wexner Hospital to learn from them, and the ministry through Mercy Health to learn from them. So it really just helped kind of get us pointed off and in the right direction here with some of our mitigation practices. Dave, you want to go next?
Sure. I'm Dave Koval. I'm the Health Commissioner for Lorain County Public Health. We've been investigating illness around COVID since the beginning of the year, and so many of you may have actually, if you were a case or a quarantine, one of my nurses may have contacted you to find out how you're doing and track your illness and try to help you get back on your feet. And so that's one of the main parts of the puzzle that we provide. The other one is to advise school districts and businesses and a variety of other folks in the community on how to open safely and how to operate safely. And so we've been partnering here with Lorain City Schools during the fall here as we've discussed how to come back safely and worked with the school district to really look at the plan and how to bring kids back safely.
And Dave's been holding our hand every step of the way. He's been giving us just very, very objective, just real time. This is what reality looks like. Here are your options. Here's the best practice. Here's some things to consider. Maybe what some other districts are doing. And then most recently has helped us really kind of nail down our contact tracing process in partnership with his department. Let's see. I'm not sure. Prakash, are you available? Are you tending to children?
Kind of both. My name is Prakash Ganesh. I'm a physician and an assistant professor at the Case Western School of Medicine in the Department of Family Medicine. I'm also a clinical consultant with the Cuyahoga County Board of Health, and I'm happy to be joining this team and being a part of it to help keep your guys' schools safe.
Yeah, thanks, Prakash.
If I could jump on real quick too, and I just want to share how this partnership kind of came together. And I think some people think that there's some things behind the scenes, or they came together because we reached out to Dave Koval and actually it was Ed Oley at Mercy Health, and we said, we don't know what we need, but we want some data to help us make decisions to find out if what we're doing is really keeping people safe and what's going on in our community, in our school community. And again, Mercy Health brought a bunch of healthcare professionals, and Shar has been with us every step of the way and outstanding. But we sat down and agreed that here's what we need to do and do a testing model that assesses the quality of our mitigation strategies to make sure that if anybody comes to school with COVID, no one else will catch it. And we're testing to make sure that holds true. And coincidentally, Ross bumped into somebody at Case Western Reserve and said Prakash is looking for a school district to look at their numbers. He's provided expertise. There's nothing study-wise can be done without people signing off and allowing it. And there were some plans originally that they were going to do some of their own testing, again, if people agreed to it and signed off on it, because they wanted to assess the degree to which COVID traveled, or the coronavirus traveled in a way that was similar to, and I won't speak to this much in depth of percussion because I'll screw it up. But
No,
similar
you're
to
doing
a
good.
common cold or the flu or whatever else. So that's when we started talking about the 19 different strands of things we're going to look for. And for whatever reason, that didn't work out. So he is just here providing expertise. And if that is going to be shared, either it will be done anonymously with we just yes, no stuff, very similar to what we're posting on our website, or people have to sign off saying, please use my data, or you're allowed to use my data. But again, but the partnership as it's grown has been amazing to watch. And as I shared in my opening comments, it started out being, again, holding our hands, looking over our shoulder, making sure every step we took was putting us at a 10 out of 10 on that safetyometer. And it's grown into something a lot more. So we sit down and problem solve a lot of different things. And again, I've been a superintendent now for about 20 years, and these things just don't happen very often where you have this level of expertise and everybody's willing to drop everything they're doing to be there to make sure we're in good hands. So again, I just thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right. So with that, then let's get into it. All right. So where we are in our Open with Care plan, we are ready to get into phase 2. We started obviously, and we've talked about this. You've lived this in a remote environment, as Dr. Graham said. When we asked you in the summer, you told us you were not comfortable that we could keep you or your children safe, and that if we did open school and you sent your child back, as soon as we had a case, and actually you told us in the district, not even just in the class or the school, that you were going to be pulling your kid back home. So when we looked and learned more, we realized we were not ready to open in person. So obviously we started in a remote environment, and we've been working to develop our mitigation practices, develop our staff skills through remote learning throughout the course of the first half of the year. And now we're ready to go into phase 2, which is family choice. On the remote learning side of the screen, again, you guys have lived this, you know it well. Some of the adjustments that we needed to make right away, we recognized that all of our students and staff needed technology, so actual devices, internet through either partnership with Spectrum or with the hotspots. We recognized we need to make some adjustments with meal distribution here in the fall, and so we adjusted from 9 locations to 33 locations, and then also offered evening times as well. And then we need to check in with you. So when we checked in with you again in October and asked, how are things going? What's going well? What isn't going well? What adjustments do we need to make? And then we also got your input about, again, coming back to in person. So we so appreciate the information that you as community members, family members have provided all along the way here. So as we transition into hybrid learning on the right, we're going to go through and we'll talk through in some detail now what that actually looks like. What's the schedule look like? What's remote learning going to actually look like? What do the mitigation practices look like to help answer those questions? So remote learning, just simply, and I'll set this up and then we'll bring Barb Bowen in to talk in greater depth about it here. I'm sorry, the remote learning, you know what that looks like. We're going to go on to the next one, hybrid learning. What this looks like is that students are being divided into 2 groups, first and foremost, that have selected to come back in person. We divided into 2 groups because when we looked at our classrooms and keeping students and our staff 6 feet apart, we recognized that we could not bring all of our students back at the same time. So to honor that space, and we'll talk about that 6 feet is an important mitigation practice for us across the district, we need to divide our students into 2 groups. So either later tonight or tomorrow, if your school hasn't told you already, you'll find out if you're in the A group or the B group if you selected to return in person. Wednesdays are going to be an asynchronous learning day for everybody. We will not have any students on site on Wednesdays. On the days that you're in person, you will be in person for those 2 days, learning in the classroom with the teacher, and those who are at home that day will be Zooming in and learning from that teacher at the same time. When it's your day to be remote learning, the other group of students will be in person. You will be home, Zooming in from the teacher with your classmates again at that time. We're providing breakfast. So when students get here, they'll have breakfast. We're going to provide a snack, and then lunch will be provided on the way out the door with a snack for the afternoon as well. And then we're going to continue our meal distribution in the community, again, at those 33 stops, and then again with the evening hours. So let's talk just a little bit more about what the remote and in-person instruction is going to look like. And we've been calling this our live stream instruction model. Barb, you want to talk through this a little bit?
Sure. So we know how important it is that students are able to communicate and contribute to each other's conversations and learn from each other. And so what we've done is we've made it so that whether students are at home or whether students are within the classroom, the teacher will be able to utilize the smartboard so that students will be able to see each other. Teachers are aware that it's going to look a little bit different, so that because of the fact that we've now taught remote completely and we've taught in person completely, but now we're joining those two together. So some different strategies are going to be used, but now the students will be able to see each other. They'll be able to communicate together, and teaching will move forward with the students in person, and that personal conversations, but the conversations will be allowed to occur between the home and the school. So it's going to be a pretty cool situation, very unique. This is uncharted territory.
Yeah, thanks, Barb. All right, so let's talk about the timeline that we have left here. So we right now notifications should be again going out tonight and tomorrow if you haven't found out already through your child's teacher about which group that you're in, the A group or the B group, to return to school. We've actually been working on staff assignments all throughout our process, and so our staff assignments are actually in place. So then the week of winter break or after winter break, the week of January 4th, all of our staff return to the buildings. And we're going to transition to our new schedule. Now, students are still going to be learning remotely that week. They're not coming into the school yet. But the week of January 4th, then we're going to switch to our new schedule, which is going to be 4 days of synchronous learning again. And then Wednesdays will be an asynchronous day. We'll talk about that schedule coming up here more in a minute. Then the following week, the week of January 11th, that's the week then that students will come back. So we'll have all of our staff back that first week after winter break, second week back. Our students will be back and in the building and ready to go with the 2 days in person, 3 days remote for that week.
Hey, Ross. Also, for our high school students, when they return, can you explain a little bit about that schedule?
Yeah, and you know what, actually,
but just to reiterate, yeah.
Yeah, Aretha, do you mind talking just a bit about how the testing works for the high school? Because
Yes, absolutely. So typically when students have their end of course exams or testing for their state testing within a regular year, they go on an adjusted schedule. And so we're basically doing that right now. So the first 2 weeks of the school, the state extended the time so that we can test up until January 15th. So we'll be assessing hopefully a couple hundred kids during that time with social distancing and mask and all the things that we need to make sure that kids stay safe. We'll be doing our testing for the first 2 weeks, and then the high school students will begin their regular hybrid schedule. I think it's January 19th. I'm sorry, I don't. Yeah.
Yep, you're right.
January 19th.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks, Aretha.
You're welcome.
And we have to give those tests in person. There's no wiggle room on that. That's a legislated item. And so that's just our reality. So as we look at phase 2, the guiding principles that we used to put our plan together were these 4. So as much as possible, we wanted to keep our students with their current teachers. We did not want to be in a situation where students and families had to make new relationships with teachers at the halfway point of the year. So that was our first principle, that we want to keep everybody together. The second one is that we want to make sure we can provide flexibility. We know that we're going to have students that need to learn from home for a time, whether they're quarantined or maybe they started out you start out remote and you decide that you're ready to come back in person. We also know that we're going to have some teachers that need to be able to teach from home at a time. Perhaps they need to quarantine. So our second guiding principle here was flexibility. then as much as possible, we want to maintain our secondary schedules. We do not want to be in a position where we need to add or drop classes. A student signed up to take a class in the second semester, they need to be able to take that class. And then lastly, we want to be able to keep our families together. So when we looked at assigning our A groups and our B groups, we looked across and by household, assign students into groups. So you should be sending your children to school on the same days. If they're in different schools, that shouldn't matter. By family, you should be attending the schools on the same day. So those are the four main principles that we used to go forward then to design our instructional model. Bill, do you mind talking through just again to help people understand the A day, the B day, and the full remote and what that means for being in school and out of school?
Sure. So I'll give a scenario that explains A groups and B groups. And we look at it from a perspective of a fifth grade classroom where there are 24 students on the roster. And let's say that 12 students or families choose face-to-face instruction. So we would split the 12 students into 2 different cohorts. 6 students would show to school for face-to-face instruction on Monday and Tuesday, and we're naming that the A group. And the other 6 students who choose face-to-face instruction would come to school on Thursday and Friday, and that represents the B group. So from a classroom perspective, there would be 6 students in the classroom, and 18 students would be live streaming in right alongside those that are learning face-to-face.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Bill. So we've got a calendar here for if you're in the A group, the days in red are the days that you would be in person. Any of the Wednesdays that are marked in that dark blue are asynchronous days. And then the days in gray would be the days that you're learning remotely. Any day that you see in that yellow color, it's a day off of school. If you're in the B group, same idea, just colors flip for you. And again, you'll be getting this information if you haven't received it already, either later tonight or tomorrow. From a contact us standpoint, at any point, if you've got questions, please reach out. So we've got the school numbers here, extracurriculars. We need to talk about athletics or transportation, health clinic, preschool. You just need help with technology. Anything, please call us so we can get right back to you as soon as possible to help with whatever you need. Is Marianne? I think I saw Marianne before.
I am.
Perfect. All right. So Mary, I want to invite you to the conversation now. If you can talk about how we've been working to get our schools set up to make sure that we've got just safe, clean learning environments and what your team has been working on. Sure,
absolutely. From a building readiness level, we have been working on, first of all, making sure that all of our classrooms are set with a 6-foot social distancing. All the desks are set that way. The HVA system, filtration systems throughout the district in all of the buildings, we've increased the filtration up to a MERV rating, which is something that comes through ASHRAE, the American Society Heating, Refrigeration, Air Conditioning Engineers. Their recommendations, we have a pre-filter and then the recommended filter that they are, their guidelines are saying, and then a post-filter. Our systems will be running 24/7 to continually move that air. With the water in the buildings, the fountains will be turned off. However, we have bottle fill stations. In each of the elementaries have 2, middle schools have 2, and the high schools will have 7 installed in different locations. The personal protective equipment, we have assorted sizes, youth, small, medium, and large, face masks, as well as adult sizes. Gloves will be available as needed. Hand sanitizer and disinfectant wipes will be in the classrooms. There are hand sanitizing stations also throughout the buildings. Our cleaning staff will be on the afternoon shift to do a thorough cleaning throughout the evenings when staff and students are no longer in the building. We have misting machines that will lay a coating, a disinfectant layer on any of the surfaces that it is sprayed on. Custodians will be available during the day to make sure that they are periodically checking restrooms and sanitizing those areas as well. I think we are following all CDC guidelines, as well as the general readiness assessment that we follow. And let's see, I think that's pretty much it.
All right, very good. All right, yeah, thanks, Mary. So the next bit here, and want to invite Dave and Shar and Prakash to the discussion here. Just what happens if folks are, not if, but we will have people that test positive. So what happens? So at a simple level, if you're sick, you're not feeling well, please stay home. We don't want you to power through or come in, and please stay home. If you test positive, you will be put in isolation, which is for at least the 10 days. And if that happens, you can still learn from home if you're feeling up to it. Again, our model is designed to be flexible. So you're learning remotely that day instead of coming in person if that was a day for you to come in person. If you're determined to be a close contact with someone that tested positive for COVID, again, you need to quarantine. This time it'd be for 14 days instead of isolation for 10 days. But while you're in quarantine, please continue to learn. So please continue to join the instruction just remotely. And again, when that day is 14th day is up and you're symptom free and you're feeling good, please come back to school and join us back in person on those in-person days. So Dave, Prakash, Shar, I just want to invite you guys in here. Anything you can just kind of talk a little bit more about the importance of checking symptoms, the difference between the isolation and the quarantine, anything related to those items, and how to know when to come back?
Sure. I'll start. So it's important to remember when you come down with COVID that you want to go a full 10 days and be asymptomatic when you come back. And the reason why that is you may feel fine after a day or two, but you need 10 days for your body to no longer be able to give that virus to someone else, to shed that virus to someone else. And so you need 10 days and 24 hours of being not symptomatic. Now, it may take longer than that because the disease can last longer. But again, as long as it's at least 10 days and you're 24 hours asymptomatic, then you can come back. Now, the difference is with quarantine is if you were exposed to someone. And so if you're exposed to someone, it really has to do with what an incubation period for the virus is. In other words, how long does it take for the virus to get you sick? And so that's 14 days. And so really the key is to stay away from everyone else so that in case you do start to come down with it, you don't spread it. And so you may wonder, well, why is it 14 days? And I know the CDC has talked a little bit about lowering that to 10 days. And so for folks who are, essential workers like a nurse or someone like that needs to get back to work, we know that most of the time, if you're going to get sick, it'll be between day 5 and day 10 of you being exposed. And so mostly the last few days you could go back to work if you had a mask. But in a situation like this with schools, it doesn't really make sense to come back early. And so again, if you go that full 14 days, most people will not get sick. So that's a good thing. But that way you won't spread it to anybody else.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. Just a little bit on the contact tracing. So we have been partnering again with Dave and the health department on our contact tracing process. So we have a district team of 5 contact tracers, and then each school has actually the principal, assistant principal, and secretary are all contact tracers. We had some of the folks go through their training today, and the rest will go through tomorrow. But when we have positive results, positive COVID results, our team will conduct the contact tracing in partnership with Dave and his team at the health department, and we'll be notifying you if you're determined to be a close contact. We'll also be sending out a notification to the school informing of a positive case. If you get or are determined to be a close contact, you'll get a phone call a text message, and a letter informing you. So we'll make sure that you know if your child has been deemed to be a close contact. If you don't get the phone call, the text message, or the specific letter, we're just letting you know that there was a case in the school, but that you're not a close contact. You do not need to quarantine. Just on this, we are, again, extremely fortunate to have a great partnership with Mercy Health, and so we have a clinic in Washington Elementary School. So if you're not feeling well, you need an appointment. One of the things that we learned in our October survey is that many folks don't know we have this clinic. So please take advantage of it. Katie Miller is our nurse practitioner, again, through Mercy Health. And she is happy to see you either through telemedicine, or if we need to do a COVID test, we'll do a drive-through, be in and out very quickly. But please contact and use the clinic if you have any concerns that are health related that she can help with. Again, Dave, Prakash, Shar, do you guys mind talking just a little bit more about the importance of just like self-assessment and how to tell, are these COVID symptoms or are these just allergy symptoms? Because sometimes that can get confusing.
Yeah, I can do that. Sorry, my daughter is singing in the background. It can be very hard. We've seen a lot of cases now where people are worried about allergies, and they think that their symptoms are allergies, and it can be very confusing with the current. It could be very confusing with the current weather changes. So what we want people to really do is make sure that they're taking those practices and the mitigation practices, wearing masks and staying away from the public and family gatherings, but also looking out for new symptoms that develop perhaps after some of these gatherings, things that are out of the ordinary for you. Even if you do develop symptoms of allergy, you really got to think in the back of your head, is this COVID? And then call your primary care doctor and see if you can get tested to make sure that it's not COVID. And then that way you're not spreading or bringing it home to the family.
All right,
sorry about that too.
Yeah, no, and your daughter singing is awesome. Makes me nostalgic for my kids when they're that age. We've got a definitions page here, and Dave already touched on the difference between isolation and quarantine. Dave, you want to just go any deeper on that, or think we're pretty good on that from the prior discussion?
No, I think that's fine. The one thing to remember is if you live with someone who's a case, you're pretty much going to be quarantined. Okay, but if the way that school is designed, if one child in a classroom is a case, probably there won't be any other exposures because, again, we're 6 feet apart, we're wearing a mask, we're washing our hands. And so that's the reason that's so important to design the school the right way.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. So let's talk more about some of the specific just mitigation procedures that we have in place. So we are mandating that masks are mandatory. We've had a few requests for, can we maybe wear a face shield instead? And Prakash, depending on the song that's playing right now in your house, do you mind sharing just the metaphor that you've used with us a couple times now around how to think about viral spread in terms of how you metaphor it to smoke?
Sure. One of the main ways that we're concerned about the virus spreading is respiratory droplets. And face shields really, like if you think about it spreading like smoke, you can see the spread of smoke quite easily around a face mask, below a face shield. So we recommend wearing face masks. That's one of the better ways. It doesn't reduce your risk 100%, but it reduces it significantly from spreading those respiratory.
I think we.
Ross, and this page is really helpful because we get a lot of questions about okay, so how are we keeping people safe? And like this is how we're keeping people safe. Amy Acton had introduced to me, at least, maybe to a lot of our viewers, about that Swiss cheese model, about the importance of having various barriers. So it's not just the face mask, but it's if another person is also wearing that face mask. Dave or Shar, can you speak more scientifically about that than my piecing it together with my hands?
Well, I'll say this, and it won't be that scientific. Everything's a barrier, right? So we want to reduce risk as best we can. So if I'm wearing a mask and you're wearing a mask and we're 6 feet apart, that's 3 barriers. If I take down my mask, then we only have 2. And if you take down yours, we only have 1. And if we get too close, we have 0. And so again, if we think about it, whether it's holes in Swiss cheese or whether it's just this idea of multiple barriers, that's why masking and keeping separate and washing your hands, those are all can be a barrier for the virus.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. So yeah, face masks are mandatory. We provide in professional development on our mitigation practices. We are going to collect seating charts any place, the classroom, cafeteria for those that use it for breakfast, buses, any place. We'll have the seating chart so we know where students are supposed to be and then who would be the closest to them. Again, we're going with 6 feet. There are some districts, and you can go a little bit less than that, but we're maintaining 6 feet of distancing. Again, hand hygiene. We've got the sanitizer all over the place. Mary talked about that earlier. So we'll be very frequently washing hands. And then, yeah, Aaron and Bill, do you guys want to talk just a little bit about the water bottles here?
Yeah, and also if Mary is still on the call, we've had a couple questions in the chat about bus safety, and in particular, like how do we maintain distancing on a bus, for instance?
Sure. We're currently working with First Student, who provides our transportation on seating charts and keeping distance with students. Of course, if they're from the same family, we can seat them together, but we will make sure that we have the distance, the social distancing in place on the buses as well. Again, with having regular sanitization of those vehicles. So that's where we are at this point in time.
Yeah, thanks, Mary.
Mm-hmm.
And just on the water bottles, we are turning off and have turned off actually the water fountains, but we're encouraging water bottles. And so, yeah, Bill, Aaron, do you guys mind talking about that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah, Aaron and I have been working together on the water bottle project, and our kiddos will have a water bottle on return, and they'll don our positive behavior plan, which is kind to self, kind to others, and kind to environment. So we're looking forward to providing those water bottles to our kiddos, and they'll be using those filling those in the hallways at our water filling stations.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. So then just a bit more here on our mitigation practices. I want to talk just a bit about testing, and Shar, I want to bring into the conversation here. Shar's been really instrumental in setting up and guiding us and helping us to set up our testing process. So the first bit is our testing process is completely voluntary. We're not mandating COVID tests for our students or our staff. Now, we encourage you to participate because the more people that participate, the more accurate our information about spread is going to be, about how accurate our mitigation practices are going to be. And when we find positive cases, we'll be able to keep people safe quicker and more accurately. So we will be doing random testing for COVID when we return from winter break. If you decide to opt in for your child, you have the same chance every single week of being selected. So it's not like we're not testing everybody, but we're going to test, again, a random sample of our students and staff each week. So if you are tested the first week, you may not be tested again, but you conceivably could be tested multiple times. You also could be tested no times. So that's kind of the random part of it. But Shar, do you mind talking just a little bit about the testing so far and with our athletes and how that's gone?
Sure.
And then Jeff Kruske, see you on too, and maybe we can bring your voice into the table here too to talk about what we've learned so far.
So Katie, as many of you know, is just delightful, and she has been working closely with the school nurses and Jeff and his team already for many weeks, testing student athletes. So we're very much prepared for the students to come back. It's a very simple process. It really just takes just a few minutes, and it's a it's a small nasal swab. It just swabs in the front of your nose area back and forth a few times. And then that specimen is put back in the container and sent off for the lab to do its work. So there's a little bit of paperwork that has to be filled out. And then students will go through a process where they get the test, and then they can go back to their regular daily activity. So it's been a good and simple process, and I think everybody who's gone through it it's less worrisome than they thought it would be. People always think it's worse than it is, but it has not been bad.
Yeah, thanks, Shar.
I will second that. Our children had their COVID testing done by Katie, and they are like crazy drama queens. And they said that it itches. It said that it wasn't painful. It wasn't overwhelming. And they're like,
don't listen to anything that you've seen in the YouTube or whatever about the testing. It's very, very simple, and it doesn't hurt.
And I think the students would agree with that. We are running on average 75 to 100 athletes through every week. And once we get through, the paperwork actually is the longest part of the process. The swabbing takes seconds to go through. What I would recommend is when we start out initially is to have the paperwork completed up front if we could. That would help support the process to get us to move at a much quicker rate. And we also invite parents as part of this, if they have any questions about the testing process, they can also call our office or reach out to one of the practitioners to gain insight. But it is a very simple process. I've gone through it myself.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff, and thanks, Shar. So just a couple other things here. The wellness rooms, each school will have a wellness room. In many cases, it'll be kind of a higher ceilinged area in the building. But it's a space where if a child develops symptoms, that they'll go and they'll stay there and then wait for a family member to come pick them up. Again, if you're sick, stay home. We love you, but keep your germs home. If you're just not even sure, and then as soon as you're feeling better and you're okay, come on back. So let's talk just a little bit about our expectations then, and how our procedures will start to work. So we've got a couple things here to really help provide, I think, consistent, clear, and succinct guidance. So we're framing our return to school expectations around kindness. And so we want to be kind to ourselves, kind to others, and kind to our environment. And so in a very similar manner as a traditional school year, when we come back to school at the beginning of the year, we spend a lot of time teaching, practicing, reinforcing expectations. And this is going to be no different. So when we return from winter break, your children will be taught our kindness expectations. They'll have a chance to practice them, have a chance to be reinforced for them, and reminded in an ongoing way. We also, you're going to hear this a lot. Dave has mentioned it a couple times tonight already. You're going to hear a lot about wash up, back up, and mask up. And if we can do these three things, we're going to be safe. So if we can practice really excellent hygiene, if we can stay 6 feet apart and we keep our masks on correctly up over our nose, covering our mouths, we're going to be okay. So we're going to have signs all over the schools. You're going to hear staff reminding students many times to wash up, to back up, and to mask up. So we will teach specific procedures around arrival, around dismissal. So how to arrive to school, what dismissal looks like. Oh, yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Before we get too far ahead, there was a question in the chat about that student testing, where and when the students will be tested and who will be conducting the test. And I know we had talked about that first week back, that that would be an opportunity for them to get their baseline COVID test with their parent or guardian, with a family member, to kind of ease the concern and feel safe while they're getting their first one. But is Kruski still on the line to share some of that protocol?
Yep.
Sure. Testing will take place in the building. Each building has a specific number of students that they will be testing on a weekly basis. Again, going back to what Ross mentioned earlier, that will be done through a random process. The testing will take place and it will be tested by school-based nurses. So the nurse that supports the building will be the one that will be going through that. There are specific protocols to how the testing takes place to make sure that we're meeting all the CDC and health department guidelines. And it is something that we talked about, the baseline testing. To your point, Aaron, the goal, if we can get a baseline test, that helps us to then track and monitor students coming in, and also to create the safest environment possible.
And just on a notification part of our process, for those that opt in, every student that opts in to participate in our testing will be assigned a number, and we're going to use a random number generator. And the week prior to when your child will be tested, you'd be notified if your child is picked to be tested. And so you'd get notification the week prior, and then when the testing would happen, as Jeff Gruski said, it happened in the school with the school nurse. They'll go down, they'll get their test, and then again right back to school again, or right back to class again. So it won't be a surprise. You will know if your child's been picked, and then for what day that they'll be tested, and again a week ahead of time. So it's not going to be just where we're just grabbing kids and testing them and sending out. You'll know ahead of time when that testing is going to occur. And on our staff side, again, we're going to provide actually that same 1 week notice. So our staff will find out a week before when their test is, their COVID test is for the following week. So just back to then some of our procedures. We will teach and practice and reinforce what arrival looks like. If you've been past any of the schools, you see footprints outside that are distanced out, so students will know where to stand, just for example, at a really simple, obvious, visible level. But we'll practice arrival, we'll practice dismissal, eating procedures, class transitions, how we move about the building and stay safe. You may also have noticed yellow markings on the floors and the sides of the walls. What expectations look like during instruction. Also for those who are learning remotely. So we've got an in-person and a remote component for each of these procedures. Visitors and material pickup. Just real simply on this, for visitors, you're not going to be allowed past the office. So if you need to drop something off, maybe that your child forgets, or you need to pick your child up early for some reason, you'll be allowed into the office, and we're only going to, depending on the size of the office and in the school, 1 to 3 people in at a time. So again, we can maintain that at 6 feet. But we'll have more information coming with very, very specifics, and I think video as well to show that. Transportation. Oh, yeah, go ahead, Aaron, I'm sorry.
Yep, and this is for our families and everybody watching from home. This is the nitty gritty that we are asked so often about. Exactly how students are expected to behave upon arrival and dismissal, all throughout the day. So this explains how they will be instructed and how to do those, how it's reinforced through the day, and as Ross is explaining, how we will share with families at home so they can be reinforced there too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then our teachers will be instructing this again when we come back. They'll be introduced to it the week of January 4th, and then when for those that are in person, we'll actually do it. Again, they'll have a chance to be taught, practice it, reinforced, and again, there's an in-person and a remote component to each of our procedures. It's all framed through the lens of kindness. So again, being kind to yourself, what that looks like for arrival, being kind to others, what that looks like for arrival, being kind to your environment, what that looks like for arrival. And then again, you're going to hear a lot of wash up, back up, mask up. We do those things, we're going to be safe. A few more things about expectations. Most events will be held remotely. So maybe school-based things that you've had in the past have been on site. where we can, we'll hold those remotely. We've talked actually a number about of the adjustments we've made to classroom expectations already. But we removed a lot of furniture, so extra furniture, so we can get more students safely. Again, 6 feet apart. We're not going 3 feet or 4 feet, 6 feet apart in our classrooms. The other item, just on sharing supplies, students will have their own materials, so we're going to minimize the sharing of resources between students. We're not doing field trips. We talked just a little bit about visitors. Again, you won't be allowed past the office. And volunteers, we love volunteers, and we want to maintain those partnerships. We're just going to ask that they continue remotely for right now. Extracurriculars, that's going to be kind of a case-by-case basis. Some will be allowed to go forward, others won't, just depending on what the extracurricular activity requires. For meals, again, we are going to be providing breakfast in the morning. We'll provide a snack, and then lunch will be provided on the way out. So we will not be eating lunch in school, but lunch will be sent home. Many classrooms are going to be used for breakfast. Some of our schools, a combination of classrooms in the cafeteria or gymnasiums will be used. No sharing food, no trading. So what you get is what you get. And then we are again going to continue to provide our meal service throughout the community. So the 33 locations, the evening hours, that will all continue. For transportation, Mary talked about this earlier, but just to reiterate it again, we're providing busing, and we're working on that right now. Mary, if you're still on, we're looking not this coming week, probably the following week, for notifying families about their bus assignments and pickup times.
Yes, we are hoping to have notification out by the 28th.
All right, very good. Yeah, thanks, Mary. And Mary just mentioned this earlier, but just to reiterate, family members would be allowed to sit together in seats, but otherwise we're going to maintain 6 feet on the buses. Masks still need to be worn, and students need to stay in their assigned seats. Students with disabilities, Jane, you want to? Is Jane on now, or is she not with us? Taken by the silence, Jane's not with us. So just a couple things here for students with disabilities. The schedule for our students with disabilities, a return date, it's all the same. For staff that support students with disabilities, return date, schedule, all the same. The only difference is for our students with the most significant instructional needs. This past week, the intervention specialists have been calling our families of those students and inviting them to participate in person for 4 days. So if your intervention specialist or child's intervention specialist has called you and offered you the 4-day option, we encourage you to take advantage of it. But if you prefer to not and maintain the either 2 days or the full remote, again, that's completely your choice. We also have ordered and are providing our staff with additional personal protective equipment. So where we need help, maybe with toileting, for example, or social skills to maintain distance, or maybe that's more difficult. We have additional face shields and gowns, gloves. So our staff has the additional protective equipment that they need. Erin, you want to pick up communication from here?
Yeah, I feel obligated. You poor thing, you've been talking for, I feel like 3 months now on all these town halls. Yeah, so for everybody who's viewing from home and who's joining us on YouTube, Facebook, etc., watching this afterwards, you can always submit any additional questions that you have to us through Facebook, through email. You can give us a call anytime, and we will continue to compile those answers to frequently asked questions on our website. When you look at this presentation online, that first line that says View Answers to FAQs, that is a clickable link that will take you directly to that information. If you go to our website, lorainschools.org, and I'm trying to remember to speak slowly so that Amerilee is not going crazy trying to translate. At the very top bar is all the information about phase 2 so that you can look at this information later. In addition, we have tons of resources for you about COVID safety that we have stolen from Public Health Department, from Mercy, for you to be able to review. These links will take you directly to all the places that you can get information about your schools and to sign up for additional updates, whether it's an e-newsletter, whether it's social media, whether it's our texts, or more of these town hall meetings. We will try to get information to you in every way we can in English and Spanish. Thank you.
All right, and Dr. Graham, anything you want to finish up with here?
You're on mute.
Yeah, just want to say thanks. I appreciate everybody spending some time with us, hanging out with us on a Thursday night. Again, I want to thank our guest panelists for not only tonight, but for all the times, and looking forward to whatever comes next. But Aaron mentioned before about the helpline. I just want to encourage you to call that if there's anything you need. It doesn't have to be school related. We have connections. We can get you in touch with the right people. So if there's anything that you need, resources, supports, please let us know. And if I don't see you beforehand, have a great holiday. Thank you very much.